Ever wondered who had the most dangerous job in history? Meet the food tasters, people who risked death with every bite to keep rulers alive. From ancient Rome to modern times, these brave or maybe crazy folks played Russian roulette at every meal. Being a Roman emperor was basically like starring in a real-life Game of Thrones minus the dragons. These rulers faced assassination attempts left and right, and their dinner plate was often the weapon of choice. About 1 in 3 Roman emperors met a violent end, and poison was a favorite method. Why? It was easy to get, hard to detect, and you could blame it on bad shellfish. That's why emperors like Claudius and Nero never took a bite without their food tasters checking it first. These tasters didn't just sample the food. They had to wait hours to see if they'd keel over. Talk about a stressful job interview. Let's talk about Halotus, who might just win the award for history's most suspicious food taster. This guy worked for Emperor Claudius, but here's where it gets wild. He kept his job under Nero after Claudius died from, wait for it, poison. Ancient historians like Tacitus and Suetonius point their fingers straight at Halotus, saying he slipped poison into Claudius's mushrooms during a feast. The kicker: instead of being executed, Halotus got promoted under Nero. That's like keeping your job at the bank after everyone saw you robbing it. Some people think Nero was behind the whole thing, using Halotus as his personal hitman in the kitchen. Pretty sneaky way to grab power, right? These food tasters weren't just playing a deadly game of take a bite and hope for the best. They had some seriously clever tricks up their sleeves. First up, the silver spoon test. If the silver turned black, that was a big red flag. It meant someone tried to slip in some sulfur-based poison. They'd also watch for weird color changes in wine, like an unusual purple tint that screamed deadly nightshade. And get this, some tasters even kept mice around. If the little guys wouldn't touch the food, that was a major warning sign. But the most reliable tool? Their own senses. They'd look for bitter almond smells, hello, cyanide, or a metallic taste that shouldn't be there. Of course, by the time they noticed these signs, it was usually too late. You think Roman food tasters had it rough? Let me introduce you to their Chinese counterparts. Chinese emperors took food safety to a whole new level of paranoid. They used silver chopsticks that turned black if they touched poisoned food. Fancy, right? But that's just the start. These tasters worked in teams of 50 people, taking turns to sample every dish hours before it reached the emperor. They even had specific tasters for different types of food. Some poor guy's whole job was just tasting soup. And here's the wildest part. They used poison-detecting jade cups that supposedly cracked if they held poisoned wine. Spoiler alert, the cups didn't actually work, but nobody dared tell the emperor that. The most effective method: they fed samples to the palace chickens first, nature's original food testers. The Middle Ages brought us some wild ideas about poison detection, and trust me, you're gonna love these. Royal food tasters got creative with tools straight out of a fantasy novel. Ever heard of a unicorn horn detector? Yeah, that was a real thing, except it was actually narwhal tusk. They dipped these magical horns into suspicious drinks, thinking they'd sweat or change color if poison was present. Then there were crystal goblets that supposedly shattered when filled with toxic wine. Spoiler, they didn't work. And gemstone rings that would supposedly turn cloudy near poison. My personal favorite? The Venice glass. These fancy cups were supposed to explode if they touched poison. Really, they just broke easily because they were super thin. But hey, better a broken cup than a dead king. Let's fast forward to World War II, where we find one of history's strangest food-tasting teams. Hitler was so paranoid about being poisoned that he forced 15 young German women to taste everything he ate. Margot Volk, who survived to tell this incredible story, spent 2.5 years eating Hitler's meals. These women had to sample every dish 3 hours before Hitler's meals, then sit around waiting to see if they'd survive. The crazy part? They weren't volunteers. They were basically kidnapped from their homes and forced into this terrifying job. They'd gather in a castle near Hitler's wolf's lair, eating fancy vegetarian dishes. Yep, Hitler was a vegetarian, all while wondering if each bite might be their last. Think food tasters are ancient history? Think again. Right now, there are people getting paid to risk their lives sampling meals for world leaders. Vladimir Putin has a team of professional tasters who check every morsel he eats, both at home and abroad. The Pope? Yep, he's got tasters too, though the Vatican keeps pretty quiet about it. North Korea takes it to another level. Kim Jong-un travels with his own food supply and a small army of tasters. Even some big-shot CEOs have jumped on the bandwagon, though they'll tell you it's about quality control rather than poison prevention. The most surprising part? These modern tasters use the same basic method as their ancient counterparts. Eat, wait, and pray you don't die. Talk about a job that hasn't changed much in 2,000 years. Let's get real about what these food tasters were facing. It wasn't pretty. The most popular poison was arsenic, nicknamed inheritance powder, because, well, you can guess why. It was totally tasteless and mixed perfectly into food. Then there was deadly nightshade, which actually made food taste sweeter. Talk about a deadly dessert. Hemlock was another nasty one that looked exactly like wild carrots. But here's the really scary part. Most poisons took hours to kick in, so even if a taster spotted the warning signs, they were probably already doomed. And the symptoms? They mimicked common illnesses like food poisoning. No wonder so many mysterious deaths in history were actually murders. The scariest part? Some clever poisoners would build up immunity by taking tiny doses, so they could eat the poisoned food themselves to prove it was safe. Let's talk about the poisonings that made rulers completely lose their minds about food safety. Remember Britannicus, Emperor Nero's stepbrother? One sip of a hot drink, and bam, he dropped dead at dinner. After that, Roman emperors made their tasters check every single drink's temperature. Then there's Pope Clement VII in 1534. A sneaky assassin poisoned just one fig in a bowl. The Pope's taster missed it, and, well, you can guess the rest. That case made rulers start requiring tasters to eat entire portions, not just tiny bites. And here's my favorite. When Catherine de' Medici's cat died after eating her leftovers, she hired a chief taster who managed a team of 20 people. Talk about a promotion nobody wanted. Being a food taster wasn't all doom and gloom. These folks actually lived pretty well. When they weren't dying, that is. They got to feast on the fanciest foods in the kingdom, lived in luxury, and even got paid better than most royal servants. But man, the downsides were brutal. Beyond the whole maybe die today thing, tasters couldn't leave the palace grounds in case someone tortured them for intel about the ruler's schedule, couldn't have any contact with their families, who might be used to blackmail them, and had to eat everything, even if they were stuffed or hated the food. Plus, they often got blamed when rulers got sick from plain old food poisoning. Talk about a tough crowd. Thanks for joining me on this wild journey through history's most dangerous dinner parties. If you enjoyed this taste of the past, smash that like button and subscribe for more historical adventures. Share with your friends. It's safer than sharing your food.